back to another episode of Sentience, conversations about lives being lived. I am your host, Alison. On today's show, we will explore art, specifically through the lens of nature, life cycles, and rebirth. There are so many possibilities, avenues, mediums, and perspectives when it comes to artwork, which is why I love it so much. It really is an infinite realm to create and bring visions to a palpable reality. There is no right or wrong, interpretation all residing within the eye of the observer. What you see and gain from a specific piece, completely an individual experience. Art is absolutely incredible and a space that I feel deep gratitude to be able to immerse myself in. One of my greatest joys with art is the ability to capture both light and dark, explore topics and ideas that may terrify people subconsciously, then be able to come to terms, or at least a realization through observing the art, life and death. Today's guest approaches much of his work through this vision. He has such an intriguing and interesting style, and I am excited to be able to highlight some of his work. He has traveled and lived all over the world, gaining inspiration, including here on Maui, with some of his pieces being highlighted on the show. Daniel Francisco, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Alison. Thank you.
I am thrilled you're here today.
Me too. Thank you. Thank you.
This is actually your second time on the show.
That's right.
You were here last season for a completely different topic.
Yep. Mestre que Pardos Capoeira. Yep.
Yes.
That's what I was initially. That's how we met. That's how we met, through that show. It was a fun show.
Yes, yes, yes. So it's just such an amazing evolution that now you're here in a completely different context, and I'm really just very thrilled.
I knew we would meet again. I just had the feeling. I just had the feeling that you have a way of finding people, and finding people who have a gift to share and want to come and talk about it. You know what I mean? So
that means so much to hear, Daniel. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, well, like I said, we have some of Daniel's work here on display, which I'm thrilled that you were able to bring this in today. Just stunning, stunning work. So we'll talk about some of the specific pieces during the show. But why don't we start with you telling me a little bit about yourself?
Okay, so my name is Daniel Francisco. I was born in Atlanta, Georgia, United States. My parents are from Ecuador, my mom and dad, and I am first generation of our family born in the U.S. The rest of my siblings are from Ecuador. So my dad was in the U.S. He found a nice little place in the ghetto right outside of Atlanta. My mom was waiting for the visa. She was 8 months pregnant with me, and she finally got it. And I don't know how, but they let her fly, and I got here to the U.S. And so I have a lot of things to be thankful for because, I was able to have the appreciation and the privilege to be here in the U.S., but then also my cultural roots back in Ecuador and always being able to go back there and stay some time and be able to get a lot of influence actually from the people, but also the nature and the animals. So,
did you spend most of your childhood in the Atlanta area?
Yes, at first. It wasn't until I was a little bit older, like a teenager, that I was able to go back to Ecuador because, it was expensive and, family was just going through like a lot of changes. So I always wanted to go back since I was little, but I couldn't, it was just because money and flying and stuff. But and a lot of times my family would come and stay with me. My uncle would get like a 3-month visa, my grandmother, and they would come and stay with us and bring us a bunch of toys and like little photos of animals from Ecuador. I'm like, oh man, I gotta go to Ecuador because we got the Galapagos Islands there. We got a lot of diversity there, from mountains to desert to rainforest, Amazon, the coast. And but most of my time growing up, I would say like the first 16 years was in Atlanta, right outside of Atlanta in a place called Marietta, Georgia.
Oh yeah, okay, I've heard of that.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Wow, okay, so it wasn't until your teens that you started to go back. And it seems to have played such a pivotal role in your work.
It has, yeah.
So that's really wonderful to hear that even though there was that space in your young years where you didn't go, it was like inherently within you.
It was always,
and it brought you back when it was time.
It definitely did. It definitely did. Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible. Well, I'm glad that you were able to start going back and
For sure.
experiencing
Because it has,
new
going
eyes.
back, had a lot of, I've always wanted to go back to my roots. It always felt like kind of something, that missing piece, when people do like a DNA test because they want to find out where their heritage is from and their roots. So Ecuador for me was like, there's no reason not to go back. And my father was like, let's not give Daniel dual citizenship. He's not going to want it. He's going to want. And my mother said, no, we need to give him dual citizenship. And they had to do it before I was 4, or else I would lose it. So my mother is the reason why I have dual citizenship there in Ecuador and here, because she's like, what if Daniel wants to go back and live there? And that's exactly what happened when I became older and I could,
She
afford
knew.
myself. Yes,
She
and it
knew.
was good, and it brought a lot of inspiration for my artwork, because when I was traveling there, I always carried a notebook, and I would just try to learn about the animals there, try to go to the Amazon as much as I could to go see animals and nature and stuff, because that's what always attracted me to paint or draw. That was my inspiration. So.
Well, that was actually going to be my next question for you, was what inspired you to become an artist? Was it that experience?
Yeah, it's funny. I never considered myself an artist. I just said I like to draw. I like to draw, and I kept doing it and kept doing it and kept doing it. And I would show people my work from time to time. They'd be like, "Oh, that's really cool." I'm like, "Yeah," but I was kind of shy about showing it. So then I was just like always putting it away. And it wasn't until like I met my wife in Ecuador and she saw my things and she says, "Oh my gosh, like why aren't you selling this stuff or making copies or prints and trying to see where it can get you?" And I was like, I never thought about it, but if you think, if you have something that you see that I don't see, then maybe I should try to take this as an opportunity. So she saw something in my art that I wasn't seeing, and she's like, I think people would like this. So then she went with me in Ecuador when I was living there. We found a place to print my art, get it scanned, get it ready, and I started doing my first art shows there in Ecuador. Actually,
Oh, okay.
my very first art show was there, and I have a lot to be thankful for, especially for her to help encourage me in that route. And so that's what got things moving. And I saw people gravitated toward my art, and I was thinking, wow, I can share my art with people now, and it's a really cool and fun process for anybody who gets to do that, right?
Right, right. So, okay, so you had been drawing for most of your life, but you didn't really make that shift to officially being an artist until you were an adult.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you find, I find this often, and sometimes with myself too, that it's hard to identify as an artist. Well, is there an official,
what makes you an
moment
artist?
that makes you an
exactly.
artist? Is it when you're selling things? Is it when you're creating things? And I think that that's a struggle for many artists in every medium.
Yeah.
And I would love to see that just go away, because there's so much talent, but people get so wrapped up in that wondering, am I an artist, or do I just like to create things, And so,
it gives and it is sometimes for people who are more shy. I feel like that name, being an artist, can almost frighten people to even go to that platform, right? You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's kind of hard to accept, but I think that when people are looking at your work and they feel art and they feel that connection, I think an artist is anything or anybody that can create, in my eyes. It doesn't have to be drawings. It can be sculpture. It could be amazing videos. It could be photography. It can be many things. So anything that you're creating makes you an artist. I think people realize they take the word too far as being an artist. They say, "Oh, I have to be this and this and this to be an artist." You're an artist. I honestly think as soon as you're a kid, because even as a baby, you're like putting things together. You're creating little houses, right? As a kid, you're playing house. I remember my sister, she used to love making houses in her, she used to always want to be a teacher. So when she was 4 or 5, I remember her creating a space to be a school teacher. So like as long as you're creating, it doesn't matter. You're an artist.
You have a vision and you're
and you implement
something.
And it could be even a business. Maybe your dream is to create a community of people, and you want to build houses for that. That's art to me. So.
Absolutely. See, I love that. And I hope that, more and more people start to make that shift in
For
thinking,
sure.
because
Yeah.
there is so much talent in the world, and I think a lot of it goes unseen because people
Definitely shy. Yeah.
shy, or
Yeah.
they feel blocked by that word.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
So, okay. Well, you have a very unique style with your art and
Thank you.
approach, which really draws me to your work. I
Thank
mean,
you.
These pieces, we can't see it in that, but they are incredible. And in a little while, we'll pull up some,
All right. Yeah.
some
Of
samples.
course. Yeah.
But if you could discuss a bit about the style and the tools that you use, and see, I learned this from you, stippling.
Stippling. Yeah.
So can you talk a bit about that?
Yeah. So the tools. Okay. So like my style, just like anybody, you have to find it over time. When I first started drawing and painting, it was first like with pencil, and I liked charcoal and stuff. And then over time, I moved to watercolor, and then over time, I moved to acrylic. And then I realized one time I was in Ecuador and I didn't have my paints with me. So I picked up a pen, I picked up a flower that I found on the ground. I said, I'm gonna try my best to draw this flower. And it wasn't until I realized what I could do with just a simple pen that I became like attracted and engulfed in like just the details that one could just do with ink. And I've always been a fan of traditional books where you would see like back in the 1940s, encyclopedias, and everything was black and white. The jaguar, the wolves, everything that was sketched was black and white. There wasn't color so much back in those days in print. So I've always admired people who could draw flowers and make them look so impressionable with just black and white. And I've always been a fan of black and white photography. That's just me. So I realized that I have to explore this more, and I ended up taking what I felt was important to give a message to people and doing it, which is drawing. An ink pen.
Just like a standard ink pen.
Yeah, I started with like a calligraphy where you would dip the calligraphy pen in the ink, and I started like that and experimented with that. And then I just, I got lazy and I said, I'm tired of dipping this thing all the time. And there's pins for this, and there's so many different names. Micron is the one I use, but there's so many different names for different pins. And I am in, you can call me like insane or perfectionist or whatever, because I go in really deep detail in my work, and I think it's almost nuts for some people to see it. Like I know other artists who see my work and they say, I don't know how you do that. I don't have the patience for that, and for me, it just does something like a meditative state. It's a flow, and I know it's going to take me a long time, hours of work, but to me, it's just what I need to do in order to start and finish a piece is put this work in and make it as fun and detailed as possible with a message in it too. So
yes, and absolutely.
Yeah.
So with stippling, can you just explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, yes.
Because it's fascinating.
It is, and it's one of the things I love to do.
Is that the official term for that
stippling?
style?
Yeah,
Okay.
Stippling is the official term, but some people call it pointillism.
Pointillism.
Yeah, so that's
I've
another
never
word.
even heard that term.
Yeah, and one of my pieces back here this is all stippling, but it's
all three of these pieces are stippling?
Just this one middle. It's all stippling. It's all dots. Like that turtle shell, there's no lines in there, right? So stippling is where you just do dots and you just create a piece of work with just dots, one dot at a time. And depending on how the shades, you want them darker, you want them lighter, you put less dots, you put more dots, you keep on adding dots to it to where you think it fits. And so this piece of, this is called The Essence of Time, is it's my longest work. It's my longest working piece. It took me about 3 months. I don't know how many hours it took, but I would just add a little bit more dots every day until I finished the piece. And so.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And all of my work have a little bit of stippling, but this one's like almost all stippling.
Entirely?
Yeah, entirely, yeah.
So other pieces may have...
stippling in the background, on the mountains,
Then with like, would you call it brush strokes?
No, pens with an ink pen, just putting one dot at a time.
But when you have like the blending, so if you have some stippling, what would... is it line draw? What is the? I know there's a specific term.
Yeah, so sometimes I use fine lines. I use cross hatching.
Okay, cross hatching.
Yeah, but everything done with a pen.
With a pen.
90% of my work, I would say, is done with a pen. Yeah, wow. An ink pen. Yeah.
That is incredible. Well, we have some of your work. that we could pull up, please.
Yeah,
And so,
the EEV.
okay, so you, when we've talked in the past, some of your approaches, so you like to look at the local nature
Of course,
where
yes.
where you're living. So we have a few clips here of, these are all specifically Hawaiian,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. These are all local animals that are either endangered or critically endangered on the islands of Hawaii.
This one is stunning.
Yeah.
This is Pueo.
Pueo and EL Valley is called that one.
Pueo and EL Valley. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep.
Oh,
My
the classic rooster.
Yeah,
I
the
love
state bird.
this. Yes. Okay, and then the next few that we have, and these pieces really, I'm very drawn to these, Daniel, because I'm, like I was saying earlier, I'm very interested in light and dark and life and death. And so I really appreciate your use of bones and I mean, this piece is incredible.
Thank you.
And really giving that perspective of life and death within one image, and it speaks so much. This one. Okay, can you talk a bit about this one, because I know that this was.
So this one
is a really big deal.
This one is like, yeah, this one is.
I'm obsessed with this picture.
Yeah, it's
I love
one
this.
of my favorite ones. This one is a romance, and it's just a lot of things into one. So this one's called Ohia Skull. And if anybody isn't familiar, Ohia lehua is a native plant here, a native tree in the islands of Hawaii. And it's where a lot of honey creeper birds like to go and get nectar, right? And they like to feed on these trees. And so what this is about Ohia lehua. It's a tale. Ohia was actually a man, a god, maybe you could say, right? And Lehua was his partner. And they lived together in harmony and love and romance. They were partners for life, you know? And Pele, the god of fire, everybody knows Pele, she was jealous of that love. She wanted Ohia for herself. She wanted that man. And he didn't want her. He wanted Lehua. So Pele, out of vengeance and out of jealousy, turned Ohia into a shrub, right? And this left Lehua without her partner. So Lehua begged the gods above to be united with her partner Ohia, and so they did, and they made her into the flower of the shrub. So you have Ohia Lehua, you know?
Okay.
So then back to the drawing, back to the Ohia skull, you have the skull of Ohia, and you have Lehua coming out of the flower, coming out of his mouth to engulf him. Right? And then out of these holes in his eyes, you have what is called the apapane bird, which is also known as Hawaii's hummingbird. This is our kind of hummingbird, you know? And this is a two-part series because the next piece I'm making is called Lehua's skeleton, but I haven't finished that one yet.
Okay,
but,
so
yeah,
this is a series.
This is a series,
okay.
Yes, and everything I do, I try to incorporate the native flowers of Hawaii that are also critically endangered, and also critically endangered birds. And then I also try to incorporate skulls and bones like this one to kind of represent life and death. You know, everything has a cycle. Everything ends. We have a lot of native animals in Hawaii that are facing extinction. So a lot of them have faced extinction this past year. And a lot of them are, you know, coming back to the surface. Just like the alala, for example, this piece here, the crow. This is called the passing of time. And when I made this piece, I wasn't sure where the crow's future was going to be. And I was very sad about it. And I've always loved crows. And so I made this piece here. And it's called The Passing of Time because if we're not careful about the endangered plants and animals here that are codependent on each other, we will lose them. And then all we will have is a little corpse of them. And, you know, and so the alala is standing over, it's perched on top of the huava tree. And the huava tree is it's one of its favorite trees to get food from. And they're codependent on seed dispersal from this bird as well. And then next to the alala, which is the Hawaiian crow, is its skeleton, kind of saying, you know, life and death. We're not sure where it's going, but we know one thing is certain, we will reach the end at some point. And then the passing of time is through the moon cycles, and that's to represent something else will come over time. and then in the very back in the sky, I have the constellations of Hawaii above there, and then just a lot of information there.
Right.
But it's one of my favorite pieces, and it says the message, that we need to pay more attention to what's going on in these little things, and the forests of Hawaii would not be the same if we didn't have these birds singing their songs, and the halala has one of the most prettiest voices, and just a lot of folklore, and it's just an amazing history,
That is a stunning piece.
Yeah.
And it's just, it tells, there's such a deep story within your pieces,
Thank you.
specifically that one. So I really hope that you continue building on this style,
yeah.
because it's,
Yeah.
I love it. I absolutely love it.
Thank you.
Can you talk a bit about your approach to studying these animals and birds? Like, do you go for walks here on Maui? And
For sure.
like, if you find a deceased bird, or
Yeah.
because I know some artists do that, like they study.
Yeah. I gotta get inspiration from something I see, and it has to be more than just a screen. Of course, when I'm looking into the research of an animal and the population of an animal and its existence or its struggles, I find great websites, great resources of the animals. Because what I like to do is, where I'm at, I study the animals where I'm at. You know what I mean? So if I go to Ecuador, right, I'm studying the animals there. I'm studying the jaguars. I'm studying the animals that are endangered there. I feel like everywhere I go, if I'm in that place, I gotta kind of do some homework and figure out what is here, what used to be here, what might not be here soon,
Right.
And so I go into that, and then I definitely like to take walks into nature. And sometimes people will say, if you go to Hosmer's Grove, if you go up to Waihe, there's these nice nature trails. You have to be familiar with the native trees, because if you're familiar with the native plants, you'll find a juicy spot where a lot of birds will go and feed. And so I would find where I have to recognize these plants. I have to go and feel them, touch them, see what they look like, maybe take a picture of them, and then later go back and then realize if I see these plants, I stay still, there's a good chance I might see some birds coming around and feeding on them. So then I get an idea. What is the size of this bird? Because everything on the internet is big. They take a picture of a small bird, but they blow it up, right? So then when I'm actually there physically, it's like, oh, it's actually a medium-sized bird. Oh, it's actually a small bird.
You get that real perspective of it.
Right. And
is
some
so
birds,
important.
yeah, exactly, very important. When I come across a dead bird, which happens a lot, unfortunately, because I have a cat at home and she hunts some doves every now and again, and I find them on the ground. But I take the moment to, be a little weird and experiment see the feathers, and I like to see the texture, and I open up the wing. But I get to do that a lot with my rooster too. I have a pet rooster, so I'm always looking at his wings, because
They're
it's
actually
just
quite stunning, aren't they?
Yeah, they're really cool.
beautiful.
And there's such a pattern with there's so much symmetry in the birds, and everything's like purposeful with the textures and with the way they look. And sometimes it might be for camouflage, sometimes it might be for mating purposes, that they come out with these beautiful colors. So I love, looking at the delicate details of the feathers and things like that, And so if I get the chance, I definitely like to do that. But not all the time, right? Because some animals you just can't grab out of thin air and be like, I want to check you out for a little while.
Right. So I think it's really important, and I think it's really cool to actually go out and see them and see these plants and these flowers
and see that they still exist.
Understand that, not just be on a hike and say, oh, that looks pretty, take a picture of it, and then oh, I think I'll create something. No, like you actually sit with it. And,
it's a homework.
It's homework, and it's almost a form of meditation.
It is.
Really,
it's fun.
Which I think is important with art.
I feel I feel really good about it because it shows that I'm like dedicated to this, and like some pieces I create, I have to go out there and see what plants are around. You know what I mean? I have to study what's there. I have to learn about what plant does this bird like? If I want to, do an Eevee, what kind of trees do they favor? And so it's teaching me more about the island and about what's here,
history.
In the history, of course. Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, so you spent some time in Guatemala.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, so can you talk a bit on? Is that where you connected with art school?
Yeah.
Okay, and in the jungle?
Yes, yes,
we've had
something
these
like that. Yeah.
brief conversations.
Yeah,
and
we
so,
did.
Again, another aspect that is very intriguing to me. So can you share
Yeah,
on that experience?
okay. So I stopped doing art for like many years. Just became a teenager, became a little rebel, and just art wasn't cool for me at the time. And then I let it go. But when I was like maybe 22 or 23, I went to Guatemala, and I just wanted to kind of get away from everything. And
Had you been there before?
No, never been there
Okay,
before.
you just decided to go to Guatemala.
Yeah, I just decided. I'm going to go to Guatemala. And I found this really cool school there that was teaching like alchemy, but like alchemy with like plants, how to make soaps, how to make shampoos, how to make natural mosquito repellent. And I'm like, oh, this is a cool place. But it was away from everything. And it was on the island of Livingston, which is like where the Garafuncan people live, which are like the Africans that were brought to this little part of the coast of Guatemala. And it was so interesting because a lot of people went there to just look at the celebrations they would have. Apparently there was a lot of like maybe voodoo and black magic happening there on this little island. Not too sure, I didn't see that myself, but I just went to this school and I learned a little thing or two. But I think for me, what it did for me more than learn how to make recipes out of soap and natural things, there was a place where there was just wood slabs. And, there was no Wi-Fi or internet or no TV. It was just like, when there's nothing to do, you just find something to do, Either take a walk through to the river, go jump in the lake, something, read a book. And for me, I saw these slabs and I saw these paints and I said, I got to paint something, here. And it was great because I had these wood slabs and behind it is all this forest, And my first night there, I saw like a howler monkey, climbing a tree at night. And I'm like, this place is magical. So my first painting, and I wish I had it, but I don't have it. I don't know if I have a picture of it, is a dog. There was a dog there. And I think her name is like Sebi or something like this. She was named after a plant there. And a monkey. And it was like the dog and the monkey, she had a stick in her mouth and the monkey's holding the stick and they're kind of fighting over the stick. Because I always remember the dog chasing the monkeys up the tree. And so they look so cartoony. I mean, it looked like it could have been like, for a 3-year-old or something like that. Yeah. But that's how I started. And then I remember one time I was in this hammock and I was kind of doing this like thing just by myself. And I was having somebody kind of bring me a bowl of rice every now and again, check up on me. But I was just there in solitude with wood tablets and paint. And I was there for like a week by myself in this little cabana, in the forest. And I painted so much that it reawakened this sleepy artist that wanted to express itself. So that happened there. And then ever since then, I just kept on doing that and doing that and doing that. So I've been consistently drawing, you can say, for like the past 6-7 years, and which is actually not that long,
So since you went to that school and spent that time there, that reignited
everything. That reignited everything for me.
And you haven't stopped since.
And I haven't stopped since. Wow. Yeah.
Well, destiny.
Exactly. It's destiny. Wow. It is destiny. And I just remember waking up to a hummingbird flapping its feathers and the wind off of its wings right in front of me. And I said, now I got to paint a hummingbird. And it didn't look great. I mean, but it was just what got me going. A lot of people say I can't do art or I can't paint or I can't draw. Well, I couldn't either, I guess you could say. But you just keep on. You got to work on it, right?
Right.
Yeah, so.
Right, and create your style.
Exactly, and learn
build the confidence.
Yes.
Right, well, I'm so happy to hear that you made the decision to do that trip.
Yeah. Thank you.
And that it brought you to right now.
To where I am now, yeah.
And I mean, these pieces, these are stunning.
Thank you.
Stunning. So that's just wonderful to hear, Daniel.
Thank you.
Okay, so the piece that you're working on now, or that you just recently completed,
I just finished, yes,
is a complete shift from Hawaiian style.
It is.
And so, at one point, you lived in Colorado.
Yeah.
Is that it? Okay. So, the first 5 since 1945 is the title of the piece.
Yeah.
And we actually have a clip, if we can run that, of you doing this piece, and then we can talk a bit about it. So, can we please run that clip? Okay, that is, again, a stunning piece, and the story behind this is fascinating. It's not just your love of wolves. There's a whole story behind this.
There
this
is,
piece.
yeah.
Okay, so can you kind of bring us back to what inspired you to bring the piece to life, and a bit of the history of the first 5?
Yes, I'd be happy to. This was inspired, a lot of people don't know this, but a big reason why I choose to do conservation work with my art or even speak about endangered animals is because of this. I worked with wolves back in 2016 in Colorado. It was my first time going to Colorado. It was my first time actually kind of just stepping away from Georgia in general, Atlanta, and living somewhere else, because I would go to Ecuador and visit, but I wouldn't stay very long, back in that time. And I worked with wolves there at a place called Colorado Wolf and Wildlife Center, and I was kind of what they call animal husbandry, doing animal caretaking, and learning about the myths about wolves, because unfortunately where I grew up in Georgia, there was no wolves. I always thought wolves were cool, but I didn't know there was a conflict between people and wolves. I didn't know there was a conflict between ranchers and wolves. And so what our job there was to educate the population, anybody who would come, about wolves actually being a keystone predator in the environment in which, its historic range is all of North America, right? And so wolves back, I think 100 years ago, there was about 450,000 wolves. But since then, we've done
in the whole United States?
In the whole United States, right?
Okay.
And I think that's even including Alaska.
Okay.
Yeah, and we did campaigns to kill them, poison campaigns, trapping campaigns, and now there's only 5,000. So we went from 450,000 to 5,000 wolves in the United States. Wow. And it's just, it's really crazy, and it hit me hard to learn about this, because I thought when I went to go work at Colorado Wolf and Wildlife Center, I thought I was just going to play with wolves, but I learned a lot, you know what I mean?
Go play with
wolves.
I'm
just gonna play with wolves. Yeah, I always wanted, I always dreamed about wolves.
It actually sounds like fun.
Yeah, I always dreamt about wolves. I knew how to do something with wolves,
Yeah.
But I was like, no, I learned a lot. I learned that these animals need to be protected, like so many animals in the world. And a lot of wolves, it's not just one wolf. You have the gray wolf, you have the Mexican gray wolf, which are almost extinct. You have the red wolf, which is facing extinction. You have a bunch of different subspecies of wolves that are either extinct, facing extinction, or on the endangered list. And we had wolves there that were rescued from either accidental litters that happened in a zoo. One time we rescued a wolf from a college dorm. It was like a wolf dog,
I remember you told me that story.
Yeah.
And it was hard to believe that somebody had
a wolf dog in a college dorm. And they're cute. They're like dogs up until they're 2 years old. Wolves are like puppies. When they're puppies, they're like dogs.
Okay.
They hit a certain age, which makes them more intelligent than the dog, because their brains are 30% larger. And then they're not here to please you. They're here to do what they want, and they are so intelligent they'll find a way to do it. So people will adopt a wolf thinking, oh, it's just a dog, until it turns into an adult, a mature adult, and then it won't let you in the fridge, and it's growling at you because you can't go in your fridge. And now you have this 120-pound animal in front of your fridge that won't let you get your steak out of there, and then it's eating your furniture, or it ate your cat. And now you're realizing I have a wild animal in my house.
Right.
So wolves sound cool up until it's not cool, and you have a lot of situations like this with people who don't know what they're doing, and they adopt wolves from the black market.
It can be dangerous.
It can be very dangerous, yeah. And then you can't release it back into the wild because it's used to humans. So you release the wolf back into the wild, it's just going to wander in the neighborhood looking for people again to give it food, So very unnatural things happen like that. And our job was to educate people, if you don't have a space for a wolf and you don't know what you're doing, don't get a wolf. Don't get a wolf dog. And also just, if you look at, there's a beautiful video on YouTube called How Wolves Change Rivers, and it's about how wolves were reintroduced in 1995 back to Yellowstone. And they were reintroduced because they were taken away, annihilated, just exterminated, extirpated from Yellowstone National Park. They brought them back, and guess what happened? the forest regenerated because the elk and the deer and the buffalo, they had all this time to just graze the forest away. There was no more green because nothing was chasing them. Wolf packs chase animals for miles. So animals, preys, deers, elks, they can't stay there in one spot because now the wolves are coming, we gotta run, which gives the forest time to regenerate. So when the forest regenerated, otters and beavers started coming back, more birds started coming back because there's more forest, there's more vegetation, there's more trees. So it's a whole system, it's a whole ecosystem that's depending one thing on another, and wolves are super important. So this is what we tell the guests, and we would have sometimes 40,000 people come in the summer. Summer was our biggest time, and to see these wolves from all over the world.
That's amazing to hear that there are so many people interested in learning about wolves.
So many people that would come there.
Wow.
And they would always ask us, are the wolves domesticated? It's like, no, they're not domesticated. They're used to us. They tolerate us. They're around us. But they're not your dog. They're not your average dog. They're not like something you can boss around or tell sit. And they're very much their own. They're
a wild animal.
They're a wild animal. They're very much wild animals still.
Yes.
And you learn that sometimes the hard way when you get too comfortable with them. So basically this painting came about because I was there in Colorado when we had a hearing about the wolves being reintroduced back into Colorado. There hasn't been an established wolf pack since 1945 in Colorado, right? And there was a hearing going on saying, we have room in Colorado for wolves, why don't we bring them back? So I went to the hearing. It was about maybe 2016 when I went there. And so many of us were like, we need to bring wolves back into the ecosystem. Colorado can handle it. There's a space for them here to do that. And then the other side were saying, no wolves, we're ranchers, we got to protect our cattle, no wolves. And then, so unfortunately, it got denied. So.
Can I backtrack?
Yes.
A question I have, because I'm just not familiar with this at all. When you say that there was not a wolf pack since 1945, does that mean that there were just individual wolves around the state?
That was the thing. So wolves were protected in Colorado if it just happened to walk in, but they didn't want to reintroduce them officially. Right? So they wouldn't be like, we're going to bring a wolf pack here like they do in Oregon, like they did, in Washington. They're like, if a wolf happens to wander here from Wyoming or from Yellowstone, we'll let it. We won't touch it. But that didn't happen all the time. And so you wouldn't really unless we put wolf pack there, it wasn't really, we didn't know when that was going to happen, when an established wolf pack was going to happen. And so wolves occasionally would be found in Colorado, passing by, right?
Otherwise, they had gotten rid of all of them.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, exactly.
That's heartbreaking.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. It's heartbreaking more because when you, in my case, in many people's case who has the opportunity to work with wildlife, when you feel the animal and you're there in its presence, and you don't have to touch it, but if you're just face to face or you're there and you see him, you understand this animal isn't it's its own being, it has its own soul. And with wolves, they're very family oriented. So it's this is why it's been really hard for them to repopulate, because they breed once a year at a certain time of year. And if you kill the uncle because you shoot it, because you got it to your crops or to your cattle, then you're killing a family member that was dependent, had a key role in that pack. And then they're out, and then they lose a member of their family.
So they stick together.
They depend on each other a lot for survival. Unlike coyotes that can be okay just eating rabbits and being by themselves,
very
just surviving. Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
So it's very easy if for wolves to, just be flatlined, done with, if people really wanted to go that route.
As powerful of a creature as they are.
Exactly.
They're very fragile.
Yes.
Very
fragile. Yeah.
Okay, so you went to this hearing, and it was denied.
It was denied, yeah. They appealed to have wolves back reintroduced.
And this was in 2017?
2016, 2016, yeah.
Okay, and now a pack has officially been...
Yes, December 18th, 2023, so 2 months ago, they officially released the first 5 wolves. I think they took 3 or all of the wolves, 5 wolves from Oregon.
Okay.
And they put a radio tracking collar on them, and it's 2 females and 3 males. And they brought those 5 to Colorado on the east side, somewhere I believe in the Rockies, and they released them on December 18th. And their goal is to hope that this pack survives. I think about a month later they introduced 5 more, so now they got 10.
Okay.
And their goal is to say if this pack reaches like 200 wolves in the state, they'll take them off the endangered list, right?
Okay.
And if they grow more than that, I think they're going to allow hunting to happen, you know? But we're not really sure. It's kind of a fragile thing at this moment, but we know that at least right now, I think they're doing pretty well. I think they're like,
Okay.
you know, 20, 30 wolves out there in Colorado, might be more.
So okay, so this was it a bill that was up in?
Yeah, it was like I forgot, it was, I don't want to say it because I might be wrong what the name of the bill was, you know, some amendment, something. Yeah, I don't have that on
So
the
this was denied. So what sparked this new movement?
Everybody
Did people just keep fighting?
Yes, everybody who wants wildlife, native wildlife, to be back into its historic range. Everybody who understands that just because we don't understand the animal doesn't mean that it's not important for its survival to be here, you know. People who are, you know, influenced, especially with wolves, you know, you got like the wolf man, you're influenced that wolves are like, you know, dangerous, and you're, you know, a lot of movies kind of portray wolves, and you know, you got that movie by Liam Neeson, that like The Gray or something, where he's like being hunted by wolves. So like media portrays wolves, yeah, media portrays wolves as some vicious creature, which is great for movies and makes a great script, but wolves are really elusive creatures. They have such good smell, like any animal, it would try to avoid you in the wild. I think there's been maybe 2 fatalities from wolves in the past like 50 to 100 years. So even when people come onto their territory, the first thing they do is try to avoid you, you know what I mean? And you know, there's always those desperate situations, but they're pretty elusive creatures. And so, you know, a lot of people used to say back in the day, the only good wolf is a dead wolf, you know? And now I think even ranchers are understanding, you know, the importance of having these animals, these prehistoric animals, back into their natural range. And it's even what we're doing here in Hawaii. We're trying to bring back animals, birds and other animals back here so that because we realize how important they are, and without them, you know, we're going to lose other things. Without, you know, these honey creepers, we're going to lose the trees that are so dependent on them for survival, right? So I think just people kept in the fight. People kept in the fight. Wolf conservation centers, that's the go-to. You know, we need to bring the message that, you know, these animals are important, and they need our support. You know, we're the reason why they're losing and they're having to survive in harsh conditions. So we need to be the reason why we try to give them the opportunity to come back, you know.
And this is your honoring.
Yes, and this piece of the first 5 since 1945 is me honoring
I love that
all my experience with the wolves at the Colorado Wolf and Wildlife Center, and just honoring nature and wolves, and just, you know, what I remember of that place and that experience was so deep in me. It's what created all of this, you know. So
wow, well,
yeah.
Stunning. And you will have prints of that
I will have prints of that piece on my website. If you're here on Maui, go to the swap meet booth 263. I'm there, and that's where
Are you there every Saturday?
Yeah, I try to be there every Saturday, and I'm selling these prints. And you'll meet me face to face, you know. So.
Okay, excellent. Well,
Yeah.
we are almost out of time.
Okay, great.
So can you just quickly say what some of your visions and goals are going forward with your work?
My visions and goals would be to continue to research and continue to be inspired and be a voice for animals no matter where I go. And that's my vision. Just keep on making art, keep on trying to represent the animals, and to not stop. Just keep on going.
Telling the story.
And telling the story, yeah.
Telling the stories,
Yeah.
because there's so many stories to tell.
Yes.
and I really appreciate looking at the endangered species and species that people aren't even aware of.
Yeah.
And giving them a voice.
Yes, yes.
A voice through this incredible medium that you have. It's quite special.
Yeah.
Well, Daniel, it has been an absolute
Thank you so
pleasure
much.
having
Thank you,
here.
Alison. Thank you.
I am just I'm so glad that you could be on the show today.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you so much.
absolutely,
Thank you.
absolutely, absolutely.
It's an honor.
Yes, and just getting the word out to the world about your incredible talent and
Thank you.
these beautiful pieces. So, are these all prints?
Yeah, these are all
prints of these pieces.
Yeah, these are prints. I have
available.
the originals at Maui Hands in Paia. Most of the originals are there in the gallery. So, but yeah.
Okay. Okay, well, I cannot wait to see where this path leads you
Thank you.
to and
Thank you, Alison.
what else you create. If you would like to learn more about Daniel's art or to purchase prints from his collection, you can visit his website, and we'll put that up on the screen. It's danielfranciscoart.com.
Yes.
And you also have a really wonderful Instagram, really great reels that Daniel does so about his work. And that is at, we'll put that up there, but it's at
f.ochoa_art.
Yeah, there you go. So we have it up on the screen. So check it out for the great reels that he has and for updates on art events and shows like Swap Meet.
Yes. I go to a lot of events here on Maui, a lot of cool art shows, so maybe you'll see me there.
Just learning about all of these art shows that I don't even know are happening. So a wealth of information here. Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us for Sentience, Conversations about Lives Being Lived. All episodes can be watched on Akaku channels in Maui County and streamed everywhere on the Akaku Maui Stream app. You can also view all episodes on our YouTube channel. It's at Sentience Show, and the show's Sentience, Conversations about Lives Being Lived. You can look up either way. And also follow us on Instagram at Sentience Show for updates, guest highlights, and opportunities to be on the show. I am Alison Samalita, and I look forward to seeing you again next time.